So in this part of the lesson, we're going to be looking at these 4 buttons down here, and these buttons are all related to how the camera is responding to where it's looking at things in 3D space. So at the moment we've got one cube in 3D space, but what I'm going to do, and I'll show you how to do all of this later on, so I'm going to duplicate this and put this in a different location off the screen. Okay, so there it is, it's right up there, and for all intents and purposes I'm going to make it a slightly different shape. It's quite a big difference, so we can really see the difference. So I'm going to be concentrating on these buttons, and they're quite simple. When you hover your mouse over the buttons, you'll see a little tiny pop-up tooltip, they call them, and it tells you basically what it does. So the first one, it does what you expect it to do. It's called View All. So if we're zooming on one particular model in 3D space and you click on this, the camera is going to suddenly zoom back to make sure that you can view everything inside 3D space. The next one, if you hover over there, is view selection. Now, how do you know whether you've got something selected or not? Well, whenever you've got something selected, you'll see this tool handle, which I'll explain a little bit later on. If I click just once the left mouse button, we select another 3D model. And these 3D model parts could be anything when you're actually on a project. They could be a tyre, they could be a wheel or handlebars, and they'll all be separate parts to your motorbike. And then by clicking on them, it'll automatically select them just by clicking once. But where this comes into with this particular button that we've got here, View Selection, is it will zoom straight in on the selected object. So at the moment we can see both. If I click on this View Selected, boom, camera goes straight on there. And if you want to view everything again, you can just press View All and you come back out again. So it's a really fast way to get straight to objects in your scene to view them. Obviously you could use your zoom to zoom in on there, but this is a quicker way of doing it, as you can see there. The next one here is View Detail. Rather than just zooming in on the whole object, what you can do with this one, when you click on it, is you've got this little tiny red box, and if you hold down your left mouse button, you can make it small or large, and what it would do is it would view anything with inside that red rectangle. So if I wanted to view right on that corner there, I would just move the mouse button. I've still got my left mouse button held down and let go straight onto that area, and these things are going to be things that you can be using constantly when you're doing 3D modeling. Again, I'm going to go and View All, back out we go. Lastly, and this one's a very special one, is that it allows you to not only view a particular part of your model, but it allows you to rotate your camera around that particular area. Now, as you notice so far, when we zoom in on a model and we try to rotate with the Alt key and the left mouse button, you'll notice that as we rotate around, the whole kind of model goes off to the side, doesn't it, to the left, and then it goes off to the middle, and then it goes off to the right. So we have to keep on right mouse button and pan so it becomes in the middle of the screen again, and then when we rotate again, it may not stay there, it may go off to the edge, and you have to pan and go like that. What about if we wanted to work on this area of a 3D model just on that corner, and then we're trying to rotate around this area, and look what happens. Let's say we're working really close and we want to rotate, Alt and left mouse button. You can see that it's completely gone out of the view. We're thinking, oh damn. So how do you get back to it? Well, we have the right mouse button and the Alt key to pan back, and then every single time you try to rotate, it's going to go off the screen. This is because the camera is not rotating around the object, it's rotating around 3D space. In other words, it's still looking at this middle area of the world and saying that's really the direction or the pivot point in which I'm rotating around. Now, to give you an idea of, I mean, do you know what a pivot point is? Have you heard of that? I'll show you what a pivot point is in real world. Okay, this is a good example. So we're looking at this, kind of, it looks like it's to a mic stand, doesn't it? Yeah. As we rotate something like that, it's having to rotate from a specific point. Okay, and the specific point is where the nut is. So in other words, when it rotates, it's rotating around that particular spot on there, and that's called a pivot point. If you look at your finger and you bend your finger, it's bending around where the knuckle is. So this is a particular area in which it's happened to bend from. You can look at it that way, yeah? And again, this is called a pivot point. So a pivot point basically is a point in which something is going to be bending from or rotating from. It's the point at which something moves from that position. And if we were to get even this flexible lead here, we was to bend it, wherever I choose to hold it and bend it, that becomes its pivot point, because it's doing it from here. That's where the bend's taking place. And the same thing happens in 3D space. The problem is, as I just mentioned a minute ago, is when you're trying to rotate around this corner, it's going off the screen. And this is where it brings me to this last little tiny button. What it will do is it will set the pivot point for the camera that we're looking through to rotate around that particular area. And this is something that you're going to be using a lot. So if we click on that, you get this little crosshair there, and you can just click like that. And now when we zoom in, it's zooming straight on the area. When we rotate, it's rotating around that particular area. And that is something that you're going to be using a lot. Let's say, for instance, you're working on a building, and then you say, well, I want to work at the bottom of the building now. Click that. I want to work around here. Click. And now when you zoom in, we're now working around the bottom of the building. So get used to using these. And if you're in any doubt about them, you can either watch this video again, or you can just play, because there's nothing that you can break in this program. You can just touch anything and click on anything, and if something doesn't look right, or you think, oh, what did I do there, just shut the program down and reopen it up again, and then everything will be back to the way it was originally. So, and that's, you can learn a lot by doing that, just playing around with things. So yeah, so that really is it. Now, in addition to that, you've got these 4 tools, and I'll let you play with these. Essentially, instead of using the Alt key, you could use these. Rotate, pan, and zoom. But they're a bit awkward. So I tend to use the Alt key, left mouse button, right mouse button, and the mouse wheel for zoom in. So get used to using these. These 4 here are of utmost importance. Yeah. They're very, very important. I won't show you too much today. And if you ever feel like you've had enough and your brain's had enough to learn for that point, just say, oh, that'd be good for today, or something like that. We'll stop there, and then I'll learn just that bit. Okay? And I'll just stop that.